So folks, I want to now talk about the meetups that we are doing on Gita. Okay, something amazing is going on with that. I mean, just like Jason and Amon got us started in trying to understand Tao Te Ching, and I think we are getting some core aspects. I find that for the Western world, we do need to take in the East, we do need to take in China, we do need to take in India. And what I find when I started when I started looking at Gita is that actually Tao Te Ching is easier to get to than Gita. Okay, that's even though I came from India, and especially, it's like communicating those ideas to the West. So for example, the Chinese mind is very much visual. And you have to get a sense of that, of the way in which it uses metaphors to communicate. The Indian mind is very, very different from it. It is audio. It does a lot of things with the ear. And so I was stumbling with Gita. I started out and it took me time to, we are now in a very good state, partly thanks to Yogeshwar and me. So for me, I'll talk personally from my angle. What I have done is that I finally have found, well, firstly, it took me a long time to reach a level where I could take the whole thing in. So I reached that Tao Te Ching. I was able to reach that right away. That means I would listen to the entire Tao Te Ching like 10 times, just the whole thing, on different translations, because that gives you a sense of pattern that allows you to start to see patterns and think about it as a whole. For Gospel of John, it took me some time to get there. And then I've been going through the Gospel of John. It takes about 2 hours. I think Tao Te Ching takes 1 hour. This one takes about 2 hours, Gospel of John. And that was fantastic because then I was able to kind of see connections. It took me a long time to get to Gita, and I'm happy to report that I'm there. So now I read, I listen to Gita. It's about 2 hours, 15 minutes. I can listen to the whole thing. I've listened to it 5-6 times. But more than that, I'm still finding it very, very hard to communicate to the Western mind. Okay. And I'm doing several things. And, I want to get people's feedback on especially people who have been attending Gita meetups. You will notice that we have changed the format quite a bit. Now, finally, we have come up with a format that works. Basically, what happens is that we take some verses. I and Yogeshwar talk about our take on the verses and then open it up. So we spend the time putting what it means on the table, and then we open it up to people. We've also added one more element, and that is we keep on giving you kind of background of the Indian mind in many, many different ways. So we have a section on saying, here is a piece that allows you to understand the Indian mind better. So those are the two things that we are doing. I am happy to report that I have found a work, because I have always searched for commentaries. With big breakthrough for me on the Gospel of John was finding Thomas Aquinas. Because what Thomas Aquinas does for me is that it really shows me what the work means. And actually what I'm finding is that people who are very familiar with the Bible, they are also saying that, wow, this is really opening up the concepts. It's just showing me what this text means. Now, I'm happy to report that I have found a person who's actually contemporary of Thomas Aquinas, born in 1275, who in some ways is at a higher level than Thomas Aquinas, because he's like the founder of the language that I grew up speaking, Marathi. He was the first person. He's like equivalent of Shakespeare, but even more. He was the first one to move the language from oral language to written language, move it from dealing with everyday concrete things to first time talking philosophy in it. He's also does what Martin Luther does. he for the first time makes Gita and all of Indian thought, philosophy, accessible in vernacular language, not just for the Brahmins who know Sanskrit, but for any human being who wants to read. That is the act, like Martin Luther, and his level of philosophical insight is the same, like Aquinas, or so he's kind of combination of Aristotle, Shakespeare, and Martin Luther. Okay, Luther. So that's the level at which he's operating, and he's completely transformed the language. So I'm reading his commentary, which is about close to maybe 15 times longer than Gita itself. It takes me 35 hours to read, to listen to Jnaneshwari. It's called Jnaneshwari, as compared to 2 hours of Gita. So I want to invite you, if you're not already looking at Gita, and I am finding Gita to be very profound. I think the West has a lot to learn from Gita. And my mind is just completely confused about how I'm going to do it. What are the various things? It just goes on, and there's just so many points. It's so deep and so different, because it is focused firstly internally on consciousness. It has levels of concepts which are amazing. Its approach to learning, it holds that each person has to understand it in their own way. So it is not based on saying, this is the solution, have faith in it. It is saying, I will lay out these things in front of you. You have to figure it out. And you are capable of figuring it out. So it has a very profound respect for an individual to figure it out. So there is just so much in it. So firstly, I want to invite people who have been coming to the Gita meetups to talk a little bit about what they are getting, because I want to understand myself what people are picking up from Gita. So if you would like to share what you're getting from Gita, go ahead and type exclamation mark. I really want to hear, because I want to take it to a completely new level. And I'm very fortunate to have Yogeshwar, who is participating in it. Both of us are learners. Okay, we are not experts, but that is part of the Indian tradition. Even Jnaneshwar says, look, I'm just a kid trying to understand this. Okay, and that is the right approach to learning. So I would love to hear what you have gotten so far, and I'm trying to shape how to do it, because it is truly a difficult problem. It's the most ambitious thing that we have done in meetups. So Evanik, followed by Joe. Evanik, what do you think?
The biggest thing I got from Gita is this idea of attachment, works and attachment, and the yoga. And I think it's is it the karma? I'm still learning. Is it the karma yoga that's the knowledge one?
Karma yoga is the work one. Jnana
Yeah,
yoga.
work.
Yeah, jnana.
Jnana yoga is the knowledge, and karma yoga is the work. And the biggest thing I got with karma yoga is about doing the work but not being attached to the result. That's had real world implications on the type of work I do. A lot of times, the work I do, you're looking for an answer to a problem, and sometimes you come up with multiple solutions, and you have to figure out which one's the best one or which one is applicable. Before, because it's a new job for me, um, it really was a little bit stressful, thinking, oh, I'm going to mess up. Oh, I'm not going to get the right answer. And then once I realized I was attached to the results, um, I was able to see that the thing I have to do is the best work possible, and working from the center and not worrying about the approval of others or being attached to the result of the work. My job is to do the work and then give it the best I got, and then let go of the attachment. And that's really helped me with the anxiety of the new job. And that's just one of the ways. I could go on and on about that. And that's just one part of the Gita. But that's the biggest takeaway I've gotten so far.
Wonderful. Joe, what about you? Please take your time. Let me know what you're getting from those.
What I'm seeing is some of the connections with the other works that we're actually reading. And then I'm starting to see how each one of the yogas actually work, are meaningfully adding into like work with the text itself. The one thing that I have kind of realized is that if I read it beforehand and I'm coming in, and then I listen to you and Yoga Shore, it's 10 times more rich after I listen to you too. So that's a really important point.
Thank you.
Yeah, that it's so that I kind of start to get it. So having the context that you've been giving us has brought it to another level already. The most important part for me personally, and we've talked about it before. It's almost before the Gita. Is this? I'm starting to have a deeper understanding of understanding the God in each person, and that is very deep. And as far as how we interact, and it actually changed my belief system and how to think about that. So that is pretty huge. And it's there's you're starting to see that is also one of the things that is semi-opposed to what we're reading in other texts.
Yes.
So I don't want to go into that, but
yeah, no. I mean, up to a point where I think the differences, I'm able to now see the differences far more clearly because I was focused on the commonality. So what I'm going to do is that I'm not going to even look at the differences at this point because I want to really understand myself. I don't understand it very well. Okay, I want to understand. Like I'm going through Naneshwari right now, and the level of understanding that I've listened to like 21 hours of Naneshwari over the past 3 days. Okay, I don't know how I did it. It's like 24 hours a day, I think. But 24 hours in a day. But somehow I've gone through 21 hours of Naneshwari, and I'm telling you, everything that I've said is nothing. There is just a lot more to it. It's very, very deep, very, very profound. So I want to understand it in its own terms. But thank you for this feedback, Joe. I would really, really appreciate it. Please go on.
And one other thing, the center and periphery was actually that meetup in particular was on the Friday night and then the 3 o'clock on a Sunday. Between those two, it went really, I mean, that really started to open things up for me as well, for me to how to look at, again, the Gita and then also the way we integrate that to Gospel of John.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. So now next I'm going to go to Jeng, but I also want to ask Margarita, because she has some basis, coming from Indonesia, some basis in Indian thought. So I want to see her reactions too. But let's go with Jeng first. Jeng, go ahead.
Yeah, I really like the Bhagavad Gita, especially I think they provide such a sophisticated spiritual path for different people to, to progress or pursue their spiritual development. And I found it's quite interesting, like American is a democratic culture, but it seems the spiritual way is more hierarchy. It's like one way. But India, my understanding is more hierarchy society, but their spiritual is so democratic. So I found it's kind of quite interesting in that way. But what I really, when I joined, I can't really join all the meetings, unfortunately, but every time I joined, I was so touched. Especially one time, Yogeshwara was talking, reading, explaining this, it just touched me. It's so beautiful. It's like just exactly our ideal way of seeing the world of human being. Like it's the beauty. It's just like, it's so beautiful. I was so touched. It's like this is exactly what we want the world to be, and it's already in the text 1,000 years ago. It's very beautiful. So I'm
Yes.
looking forward to learn more about different,
Absolutely. Great observations. And I want to say two things, not just in response to what you said, but you've said things in the past about this. So one part of it is that Gita is very integrative. So there is the path of work, path of knowledge, and path of devotion. And all of those are connected to each other. They are all together. And you can see the relationships between them. We're just beginning it. So he has, Krishna has begun to talk about it, but there is a lot more to that. So that's one thing. And it is very open to saying, choose your path. You can reach, salvation you can reach God in each of these ways and choose that. That's one thing. Second, and this is a point that you had made earlier, is that it has a profound respect for learning. So I'm going to read out, maybe sometime, in either the next meetup or the one after that, just the dialogue between Arjun and Krishna, which actually demonstrates like the teacher, that this is God, okay? And the student, firstly, the student is asking questions. He says, you said this, but you also said this. This doesn't make sense here. Please explain what are you saying? It seems contradictory to me. And when he asked the question, Krishna's reaction, and Naneshwar does a very good, in the commentary, does a very good job of saying, what would be the reaction of Krishna? Krishna is delighted. He says, he actually is trying to figure it out. He's trying to say, I want to apply it to my life. I want to understand it on my own. And he is full of joy. And he just pours out his next thing. And so there is this tremendous respect for learning. And like I was reading something, listening something today, is saying, look, if you cannot learn, just do this. If you cannot do this. If you cannot do this. So it's like he's giving you all the options. He's saying, keep learning with your ability, and you will make the progress that you will make. Keep moving in the right direction with the best ability that you have. So there is a profound respect for knowledge, not knowledge, but of learning, which is really very, very deep. In it for me, it's through the entire Indian way of thinking. So I think that's something that you're going to really like on this. Next up is Margarita. Margarita, what do you think?
Well, it facilitates me as a learner. Obviously, that's text for those texts are for a learner. I think other than that, learning from Gita, acknowledging, I can hear some of the value or statement previously told by my parents and my family that I didn't really get it. I just thought that they're just saying things, for me as a child, that now I start to realize what that means. So it's a part of my search for my identity as well, probably. It's quite interesting to see, so related. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, so thank you, folks. Does anybody else want to comment on anybody who has been attending the meetups? So I would recommend these meetups to everybody. I don't know. So what I want to say is that I'm actually being very, very ambitious. Okay, of saying, because I was talking to Harold Nelson. Okay, he's doing a bunch of things for Indian audience, and he's saying, okay, how do you communicate to a culture which is very different? Okay, I am trying to do the reverse, but it's the same issue. How do you communicate? Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do it in two parts. So firstly, I'm going to work with Yogeshwar. I think we work together very well because both of us have the kind of learning attitude. I know some things better than him. Like, for example, where you guys are coming from, I know a little bit better than him on that. And what the Gita is actually saying, he knows a little bit better than me. And I mean, I'm saying a little bit, maybe it's a lot. in both ways, but it doesn't matter. The crucial thing is that both of us are committed to learning. So I think our, collaboration works very well. He is able to capture the essence of things very well. And I'm able to kind of listen to it, and I'm saying, okay, what do I need to say? How do I need to connect it to somebody who is coming from the West? What else do I need to say in order to, so that people with the Western context can understand this better? So that's one of the things that I've been doing, and I'll continue to do that. So that's number one. So it's kind of a collaboration that works very well. Secondly, I'm reading Naneshwari, okay? Naneshwari is actually far more easier to grasp than Gita, because his purpose was saying that all human beings need to be able to access this. And he has this amazing metaphors. I mean, I'm just so taken by, because I know the language, Marathi, and I'm just so, my parents have started reading it, have started listening to it. So I'm going to have discussions with my parents on this one as well. So I'm just awed by the work. Just like, you remember me being very excited when I've discovered Thomas Aquinas in Gospel of John, and you've seen what it can do. Okay, it is the same thing. Okay, Naneshwar does the same thing to Gita that Aquinas does to Gospel of John. So let me ask Evanik and Joe, who have attended both this one. So what do you think Aquinas adds to Gospel of John?
Wow, that's such a big question. For me, it gives me a deeper understanding of the Bible that I never had. One of the things about my background is when I studied the Bible, it was always in the context of church and an organized religion. And so there was always agenda behind it. With Thomas Aquinas, I think the agenda is learning. And he gives a cultural context, and he also gives the why Jesus are telling these stories. And, even if you don't believe in the Bible, it helps you understand it better. And it helps you get a better grasp of what Jesus is trying to do. But it also gives you a grasp of the people and the culture. And the question that I think Aquinas leaves with us is like, how are you reflected in it? I'll give the example of the Samaritan woman at the well and the fountain. And when he talks about the fountain being in you, like the life-giving water that he's going to give you is himself, and he's putting himself in you as a fountain of living water that will never run dry. Never understood that, really. Never understood that until I saw the Aquinas version, and I got the simple fact of the human and the divine, and Jesus giving that gift to us is that we're human and divine and letting us know. And just with the Samaritan woman and her five husbands, sorry, being the 5 books of Moses.
Mm-hmm.
And that I never connected before. And so I think like reading Aquinas, number one, is just a deeper level and understanding of the Bible and the metaphors that they use and why. But I think too, it just gives a better grasp of what Jesus was trying to say without the agenda behind it. So to me, it's just very deep and very, very fulfilling. Every week I go, I learn more and more, and I can connect it to the other works, to the Gita and to Tao better after going through it. It feels like, in a sense, I've never read the Bible with the Aquinas version, because I never read Aquinas, and I'm like, I never saw these things. So it's just like reading the Bible new.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Joe, what do you think?
I mean, I think it brings, it adds a tremendous amount. I mean, he writes about 26 lines for each line.
Mhm.
that is written in the Bible, in the Bible itself. And the thing that the Gospel of John allows for is it's much more metaphysical in nature. And so what happens is Thomas Aquinas bridges the gap and really kind of explains not only the metaphysical concepts and the questions that you may have in that process, and not only the contextual nature of the times and what it meant. You know, this is why this under these circumstances he would not have been talking to this woman. But not only all that's just something that's very good research, but also some of St. Augustine's works as well that he references in there. And then he also gives you context as to, again, the different factions of the time. That so it's more, it's not only does he take it from a philosophical, metaphysical perspective, but he also gives you the hard, concrete information that you need in order to make the connection or arrive at the connections that you're going to arrive at. The examples of spiritual water versus, you know, water in, you know, in a material sense, you know, that's just one example of how, you know, he articulates these things. He captures that across the board, and that is when you're really thinking about these things, if you read that, it just brings it to a whole new level. So
All right. So I will say a few things. But now I want to compare what Nanishwar does to Gita as compared to what Aquinas does to the Bible. Okay. Number one, Nanishwar has the same kind of metaphysical understanding like Aquinas. He's able to, kind of just tell you exactly what the idea is behind what is being said. That's number one. Number two, Aquinas' language, actually Bible's language is far more beautiful and poetic than Aquinas. Nanishwar's language is far more beautiful and poetic and metaphorical than Gita. Okay, Gita is poetic, but this is like he's using lots of metaphors to actually show in various ways, like 5 different ways. He will show you what is being meant. So he will name it, and then he's going to use all these metaphors. Plus, he's going to give you the context of the dialogue. See, the dialogue speech between Krishna and Arjun. What does that mean? Because he gives you the context of that. What is actually going on in the mind of Arjun? What is going on in the minds of Krishna when he's saying something? He's giving you the background of that. Okay, so it is far more, it basically does, it just, and it's, I mean, for me, it's like, because I read the language, it is just amazingly beautiful work. And it's all done in verses, by the way. It's not, so he's doing poetry just like, because that's the Indian tradition. So you can listen to it and it will just remain with you throughout. So that's one piece, right? So I've got Yogeshwar and me going through the text. I'm trying to connect it. Plus I'm going to bring in Nanishwar, who's going to be just like Aquinas, okay? The third angle I'm adding, because this is something that you already have for Gospel of John, is the culture. Okay, you have, those ideas are part of your culture, so you can take that for granted. You don't have that for India. You don't have that for China either. So that's why people like Zhang and Kevin and Jason, they have been able to contribute a lot, or even Amon, because he's really is trying to bring in the Chinese culture, Chinese way of thinking. So I'm doing several things. So I did this piece on Nanishwar, that, him saying it in one language, one sentence, the essence of Gita, and then his approach to seeking. So I'm going to take different themes. So I'm going to talk about devotion, the role of bhakti it plays, the role of learning in the Indian context. So I'll do these sections along. Mostly I'll be designing it by myself, and I'll be speaking on those things. And then I'm going to have Yogeshwar comment. I'm sure he will have amazing things to comment and add to that. But just like, you know, what we do in the Louis Sullivan meetups, it'll be like two separate presenters bringing their own thing. We will just discuss, okay, I just told him, okay, we're going to do something on bhakti. You know, what does bhakti yoga mean? Because bhakti yoga comes in explicitly in chapter 12, but it really permeates all the thinking. That because what I mean, to give you in brief, is that you're saying that the God is in you. So you have the feeling that you have towards God in Indian thing is like, it's you, it's your friend, it's not even your father, it's like, it's your friend. Just like Arjun and Krishna are talking to each other as friends who love each other and who are going back and forth. That's how you talk to God. And you have the kind of feeling that you have for a friend that you really love towards God. And that permeates all. That is the foundation of you knowing about God, because it is you. It is walking with God because it is you. So it just integrates your actions, thought, and feelings. So the feeling component is the bhakti. So it is integration of thought, feeling, and action in one. And that feeling piece is explicitly discussed a little bit later, but I want to prepone it because it permeates everything. You can't really understand the thinking part because the thinking part is closely connected. It's not the analytical thinking that's there in the modern world. It's not even the Greek thinking of Aristotle, of doing syllogisms. It's a different kind of thinking because it is permeated through and through with this love. The action is not something that is there in the modern world. Oh, I have to do this. No, because that entire, you're acting in accordance with God, in doing something which is like him. So it's that is actually very similar to the Bible way of doing it, or even the Tao Te Ching way of doing it, of this action being kind of part of your understanding and of your love. But those are the kinds of points that I'm going to bring in. Joe.
That's a deeper way of knowing, of knowledge, than say what we cover in Bible. I mean, there's a much, what you just expressed is a higher reverence for the quest for knowledge than Bible has on Thursdays.
Absolutely. And like, for example, Zheng has pointed out several times. By the way, I listen to everybody, okay? Zheng, I listen to you. Even if I don't comment on it or something like that, I listen to you very closely. So again, at least 7 times, probably 17 times, you made the point that you have to do something like practical in order to apply the ideas. And let's do something, right? So similarly, for example, the point about emotions, what we are doing is, the emotion part is actually implicit in everything that we are doing. And to bring that in explicitly as saying, okay, how is learning and emotions connected? Just like how is learning and action connected? And the beautiful thing about this, Gita, is that all these 3 things are connected, and they're integrated at a very deep level philosophically that you cannot, and it's very explicit. And why is it? And why is it that you need to have this kind of devotion if you just want to know? Because, and why is it that you need this kind of devotion if you just want to act? So that, it brings all of these things together. Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because it's what the designer talk about, left brain, right brain, the integration of the left brain, right brain. the emotional and rational thinkings, because knowledge a lot of time is about rational thinking. Then they actually integrate this emotion and also doing. I think that's actually a very advanced way of believe, instead of like people believe in something without much knowledge, like blindly believe. Instead, like they're convinced, both their mind and heart in believing something. I think it's much higher level of belief system.
Yeah, absolutely. And Design Way is doing that, but you will notice that the works that we are studying actually pulls off that integration better than anything modern, because Design Way is a modern way of approaching that. So for example, this true, real, and ideal, Tao Te Ching, Bible, and Gita do that integration far better than can be done than Design Way, because Design Way is trying to break it up and say, oh, this you have to do. But you know, the Bible does it in a really, really powerful way. So does the Tao, so does Gita. And the visceral integration there, like oneness of it, is far, far more powerful. That's why these books have had the kind of impact that they have had. All right. So does anybody have anything else that they would like to add? All right. Thank you very much, folks. I really look forward to the meetups. Don't miss the Gita meetups. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but it's going to be really, really good. Okay, I have to because as I said, I've listened to it for 21 hours in the last 3 days, and I plan to finish it. It's 35 hours. I have 14 more hours to go, and I want to finish it very soon. All right, folks. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Bye.